Welcome to Sectors Up Close. I'm Elena Casas. Our focus today is on agricultural technology, and my guest is Nadav Bocher, CEO of Greeneye Technology. Food prices have soared globally in recent months. This is the most traded wheat contract on the Chicago Board of Trade, up 23% year to date, after the war in Ukraine blocked the country's seaports and left at least 10 million tonnes of grain stuck in warehouses. 30% of the world's grain exports come from Russia and Ukraine, and at least another 20 million tonnes of wheat has been lost this year to crop failures caused by drought in North America and heavy rain in Europe. That means food inflation of 8 or 9% in the developed world and an estimated 811 million people in the developing world going hungry. But a number of companies are working on technological solutions to the food crisis. This is the Global X Ag Tech and Food Innovation ETF, one way for investors to get exposure to agricultural technology. You can see there it's down about 17% year to date, but much of that is due to sell-offs in meat and dairy substitute firms, Oatly and Beyond Meat. This space also includes agricultural innovators like Corteva, developer of weather and herbicide-resistant seeds, and crop nutrient maker Nutrien, and they've seen significant gains this year. Well, to dig into the farming of the future, I'm joined now by Nadav Bocher, CEO of agri-tech firm Greeneye Technology. Nadav, hi, thanks for joining me. So, what role can technological innovation play in trying to solve the food crisis here?
Hi, thank you for having me. I think the role of technology is actually quite crucial in our battle, essentially producing enough food for a growing population. And the reason is our main challenge is to help farmers across the world to grow more with less resources. They have less land, soil less fertile, commodity costs more money than ever before. So I think the role of technology is to enable farmers to utilize technology to actually produce more yield from every acre of land with fewer resources. And that's the focus of Greeneye and a few other companies in that sector.
Do you see a surge in investment and interest in this space following the rise in food prices after the conflict in Ukraine?
Absolutely. So we've seen from financial and strategic investors more attention than ever, understanding that I think what the conflict with Ukraine and Russia made all of us understand is the volatility with COVID, right? The volatility of the space of food production and how crucial it is to kind of build a resilience food production. We see it from financial investors. We see it from countries that are trying to secure their own food production. So yeah, I mean, then there's numbers that as far as it's kind of the highest numbers than ever before as far as private money invested in tech company like ourselves in our sector. So yeah, I think investors are definitely looking at that space. They understand that the need is just growing, and it's one of those sectors that the need is not. It's not nice to have. It's a must to have for us to actually sustain ourselves as society in this world. So I think investors are now leaning towards investments in things that are more, crucial than as opposed of maybe nice to have solutions.
So what sorts of interesting technological innovations and developments, other than your own company, of course, are happening in this space that investors should be keeping an eye on?
Well, I think it goes back to the same category I mentioned, is different companies, including ourselves, that are helping farmers to invest less money, especially on chemicals, on inputs, on fertilizers and crop protection, and to be a lot more efficient there. So the result of the way farmers today globally are spraying inputs, crop protection, fertilizer is through the entire field. We call it broadcast spraying. So they're treating the entire field evenly. They come up with those large agricultural sprayers and they spray the entire field evenly. And there's multiple results for this, right? They spend a lot more money than they need in a market where margins, as it is, are very, very thin. But also from an environmental standpoint, that creates, significant soil and water pollution, expose all of us to the overuse of chemicals. So I think there's different players that are attacking different areas of this, and I think this is maybe the most interesting trends today, in my opinion, in precision agriculture.
So what sort of projects or other specific companies do you see future growth in?
Yeah, so I would take a look at two different sectors, I would say. One is on the equipment companies, equipment manufacturers, whether it be John Deere, CNH, or Echo, Kubota, all those giants that makes all type of agricultural machinery, sprayers included, to see how they work really hard to utilize artificial intelligence to their fleet of machines. Understanding this is crucial, this is the future, it's actually the present already. So this is one very interesting sectors, and I think all of the players in the equipment space are investing a ton of money and resources to make themselves suitable for the technology that are coming towards them. So this is one area. The second area I would say is more to take a very close look on the chemical manufacturers, right? So Syngenta and Bayer and BASF and Corteva that you mentioned. Those players also, I think, in a way, the technology of spraying less or be more efficient with pesticides and crop protection somewhat threaten their business. But I think it's really interesting to see how they're trying to reposition themselves, to redesign business models to make this change that they understand it's inevitable because the technology is already here and it's coming. How they're kind of adapting themselves. So I would look very closely on those two sectors, the chemical manufacturers alongside the equipment manufacturers.
Thanks so much for that insight, Nadav Bocher, CEO of Greeneye Technology. Well, before I go, here are some of the stories we're following in this space. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss told reporters the crisis around the grain trapped in Ukraine must be resolved in the next month during a visit to Turkey. Turkey has been trying to negotiate terms for an escort of cargo ships through the Black Sea, but says it hasn't been able to set a date for a meeting between Ukraine and Russia. Bangladesh is trying to secure at least 200,000 tonnes of wheat supplies from Russia to contain local prices, government officials told Reuters, after India's ban on exports during the global supply crunch pushed up food prices across Asia. And China says 67 acres of crops have been lost to flooding in Guangdong province this week. The record high rainfall has forced nearly 500,000 people to evacuate and wrecked $261 million worth of food production. And that's your roundup of the agricultural tech sector. I'm Elena Casas, and this is Reuters.